Tulsi Gabbard has left the Democrat Party, but even if you've heard this news, stick around because there's so much more to this story that few people will dare to talk about, but I will. Once a rising star in the Democrat Party, an attractive woman, a non-Christian, she's a Hindu by the way, who comes from a multi-ethnic background, she's half Samoan. Tulsi Gabbard later learned about the military-industrial complex and saw the Democrat Party turn into Marxists, so she finally decided to leave.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party. It's now under the complete control of an elitist of warmongers driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms enshrined in our Constitution, and who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police, who protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war.
Did you hear that term that she used explaining one of the reasons why she left the Democrat Party?
Stoking anti-white racism.
She didn't just say racism because, like I've been saying for years, whenever anybody hears that word, they've been conditioned to think that it's white people being prejudiced to non-white people. Oh, and I almost forgot, the reason that Tulsi made this big announcement yesterday about leaving the Democrat Party is because that was a publicity stunt for her brand new podcast, which also just coincidentally kicked off its first episode yesterday. So like a true politician, her actions were self-serving instead of thinking about the greater good. And about a year ago, I had a DM exchange with Christopher Rufo. He's the big critical race theory expert. And I encouraged him to introduce the term anti-whiteism to his audience and to help popularize it because using the word racism and critical race theory really only obfuscates what it is that's going on. So far, he either just doesn't get it or he's too cowardly to use such terminology out of concern that the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ADL, will ultimately deem that term to be a white supremacist slogan, just like they have White Lives Matter. He is proud of himself, however, for coining the term radical gender theory to describe the gender-bending agenda of the LGBT Marxist extremists. So if you are on Twitter, maybe just send him a polite recommendation about another term that he should start using. Speaking of Twitter, however, Scott Adams, who is the creator of the popular Dilbert comic strip about the craziness that goes on at the office, he commented on Tulsi Gabbard's video, quote, "Calling out anti-white racism is something you can say out loud now. I canaried that coal mine and barely survived." Wow, you're so brave you pointed out the obvious in the past. Personally, I think it's pathetic that most Republicans needed a black man, Kanye West, to finally make it okay to state the obvious that white people's lives matter. And now a Democrat, Tulsi Gabbard, a former Democrat, she still is a Democrat at heart, just not an official member of the party, to finally admit that there is systemic anti-whiteism, not just in the Democrat Party, but throughout most of America. In academia, in Hollywood, in the big tech platforms, you get it. Certain conservatives, and you know who they are, I've called them out many times, are uncancelable. They can weather any storm that comes their way. They have the full support of the entire conservative media ecosystem, from Fox News to talk radio to all of their other little members of their social media cliques online. Not to mention they're multi-millionaires.
I will comfort myself tonight by sleeping on my bed made of money.
I'm sure we have an adult. I'm sure we have another adult subject to talk about.
But instead of using their platform and their position of power to address certain problems in our society, instead they just shill for more sponsors and then continue to give lukewarm takes. Our corporate conservative leaders, the brand name Republicans, have failed us. So I, a guy in my kitchen on a laptop, will continue to shout the truth from the rooftops as loud as I can, hoping to get through to people. And we, not me, we are a lot more powerful than most people think. About a week after I did a video calling out Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Sean Hannity, and others for never reporting on, let alone mentioning Operation Mockingbird, Charlie Kirk titled his podcast Operation Mockingbird and the Deep State. Not just because of me, but because of you. He saw all the tweets, all the comments, people sharing my video as responses to his tweets, and he got the message and he listened. I'm not looking for credit, I'm looking to change the culture. And we're going to continue to let's just say, politely educate the supposed leadership in the conservative movement and get them to finally wake up and speak out. Or we're going to expose them for the cowards and frauds that they are. Independent content creators, us little YouTubers, have always been 10 to 15 years ahead of the corporate conservatives, as you know. How many YouTubers that are not affiliated with any network or any major media outlet have been denouncing Drag Queen Story Hour since 2017, like myself, once it first came on our radar? And as you know, it wasn't until just a few months ago, literally 5 years later, that the topic finally went viral and became a major concern in the conservative media ecosystem. And seriously, not to brag, but just for historical reference, my 2010 book, The New World Order Facts and Fiction, detailed how the LGBT extremists were grooming children in schools and using children's books into gender bending back then, 12 years ago, which finally now has become a major topic of concern amongst even Republican members of Congress. I don't say that to brag and to say that I was right and I'm so smart and I saw this coming. Everybody saw it coming. I say it because the Republican leadership have been cowards for well over a decade, because everybody saw it. But sadly, the corporate-approved conservative culture warriors and the Republican members of Congress always wait until we're in a boat with no oars, 5 feet away from Niagara Falls, to finally start addressing issues when it's far too late. To support my work, order my books in paperback from Amazon.com, or click the join button below the video to sponsor my channel with a paid membership, or click the thanks button below the video to leave the channel a tip in the form of what's called a super thanks in the comments, which will highlight your comment in color, and it's a great way to support my channel. So take a look below the video for the join or the thanks button, and check them out.